Okay, so Sanjay, I feel like we almost don't need to introduce you because everybody knows you from watching you on CNN, but tell us your backstory. How did you get from medical doctor to White House fellow to CNN?
For me, it was a really interesting transition. I think it was serendipitous in a way. I was interested in medicine, obviously, since a very young age. Became increasingly interested in the policy of health, how we actually create a policy for healthcare in this country, and thought that getting involved with the executive branch of government might be a good way to really immerse myself in this. I came across a friend of my dad's, a guy named Jim Padilla, who was heading up Ford Motor Company at the time, and he had been a White House fellow. I sat down with him one day, and he just extolled all the wonders and virtues of the White House Fellowship. And the first thing you think when you hear about the White House Fellowship is, that sounds great, but I'll never get in. So I went ahead and applied anyways on a lark, and amazingly, and I think transformatively for me, was accepted. And I think in many ways the year as a White House Fellow has shaped the rest of my life. It taught me a lot about how to communicate with people, taught me a lot about understanding how to navigate through difficult problems and how to find solutions to those problems, and introduced me to some of the best friends that I've had in my life since then. People who are not only my friends, but constantly give me advice, I talk to on a daily basis, and that's led me here.
So I found this little piece of metal here, and it says on it, the purpose of life is a life of purpose. What does this mean to you?
The purpose of life is a life of purpose. I think this is the thing that has driven me, I think, since a young age, even if I couldn't vocalize it. Like, what are we here for? What are we supposed to do with our short time on earth? And how do I have the most purpose in my life? Not only because I can help impact the world, but also because it brings me joy to do that. I think what's extraordinary about the White House Fellows is that you kind of think that maybe you're the only person in your community who sort of thinks this way, and you're not sure if there's others that are like you. And then you go and meet your class of White House Fellows, and you finally find a bunch of kindred spirits, people who embody that very phrase, this idea of life of purpose. It's not just a saying for people, it's a way of life.
So if you were advising a young person who was considering applying to become a White House Fellow, what would you say to that individual?
I think for anybody who's thinking about the White House Fellows Program, I think one thing that you should know is that for the people who do it, I think myself, just about anyone that I know, it's one of the most transformative things that you'll go through in your life. You should know that, and just like most things, you get out of it what you put into it. But I think if you're thinking about applying, sort of recognize that this is a year where you'll be immersed in the highest levels of government. You'll have a plan, because if you're applying for a White House Fellowship, you're the kind of person who has a plan. But go ahead and don't completely follow the plan. Let the path take you where it's going to take you, because there were things that I learned, people that I met, things that I ended up doing that I never anticipated. And that was the beauty of it.
Now, you're still relatively young. What is the plan for the future for you now?
I'm turning 50 this year, so I don't know if that still qualifies as young. But, I think that's, I'm kind of where I want to be right now. I'm doing the sort of things that I like doing. I get to continue to practice medicine and neurosurgery, which is my first and truest love. And I think one thing about the Fellows Program, it was never about trying to pull people out of their professional loves and things that they enjoy doing. It was about adding to it. So I get to continue to practice medicine, but I also get to travel the world, seeing people, usually at their best, sometimes at their worst, but always with a lot to share and so many lessons. So I get to be a doctor, but also a storyteller and a teacher. And I think I've become more convinced over time and comfortable saying that I think the work that we do makes a difference. And I don't think there's anything more gratifying than that.
I think you're very succinct, and I think we're done as far as I'm concerned. Marguerite, do you want to ask a question?
Tell us a little more about your fellows here, highlights of what...
Good question.
I had this amazing fellowship year. I worked for the First Lady, Hillary Clinton at the time. This was 97, 98. It was the first time she had a fellow, so we all got to learn a little bit along the way. And I think what was interesting is in the beginning of the fellowship, you're sort of trying to find your way, and you do everything. You know, I'm coming out of my chief residency in neurosurgery, and all of a sudden I'm working in the White House doing everything from running faxes, which we used to do back then, grabbing cups of coffee for people, just keeping my ears open, my eyes open, listening for interesting projects or things that I could throw myself into. And then all of a sudden, by the midpoint of the year, someone comes up to you one day and says, we have a speech for the First Lady tomorrow. Do you want to write it? And you just, it's just these sudden baptisms throughout the year that are wonderful. You feel like you're absolutely not prepared. You can't do it in some ways, and then all of a sudden you're doing it. And when a year goes by, you can't believe it's over. The best part of the fellowship year, and I'm sure you hear this from everybody, is the people. The fellows. They've stayed my best friends. They're people who they just kind of get it. They get your life. When you call them with problems or issues, you have the shortcuts in language and in thinking that makes you have these conversations that you just can't have with many other people. So it was an extraordinary year for me. I still pinch myself sometimes thinking about all the things that I got to do, and it's been almost 20 years now.